Afternoon. So we have a esteemed panel here. We'll try to figure out what DevOps is all about. What are the challenges that we face in navigating through the roadmap? What are some of the learnings that we can adopt? And let me begin with all of you. What is DevOps about, and what do you think is very exciting about it or not so exciting about it, or anything other than DevOps that you may want to kind of bring to the table?
Yeah. So we had a little bit of a dance session and other things to come back to the session what we want to conduct. So when we talk about the DevOps, DevOps basically is now come up in recent times, but it is there. It's basically the practice which is followed by the most of the development companies who basically has operations and development team collaborating together. So DevOps is now, because of this 2 years last situation where the digital platforms have evolved, and each of the companies basically are getting into having their own team for doing the development part. But yes, because these practices are not being followed by the companies who don't have this team, there is basically like us, we basically outsource everything. So the DevOps part doesn't come to us till last 2 years. Now if you see, I have got a team of 5-6 people who work for development plus the third party people. So now this basically practice has to be put into our organization, and we are just on that roadmap. So that's what I can say. Yeah.
So for DevOps, for us, it's like culture, and we believe that the culture is not something you can develop in a day. It's like it has to be in your genes, right? And that is what we are doing. And DevOps means agile, and you have to be very practical, not reactive but proactive. And with that, it helps you to develop the lean team. In our company, it's like we are very limited numbers of employees and doing great numbers of deployments every day. 500 plus deployments, something like that. That's a weekly deployment. We have built a tool in-house which takes requests close to 1,000 a week, and without touching DevOps. Like, we don't do that things, right? It's just like that. And we say that, hey, just do it yourself. Like you go to the restaurant, you go to the cafeterias like that, where you ask for the foods, and there are like caterers. It's just like that. We have a tool where we are catering multiple services, and that is what it is. All about DevOps. If you're not, this is a culture which we are building, right? And I feel that this is helping us to save cost, reduce human resources, solve audit problems. In fintech audit, don't ask me what is the pain you have with the audits, right? So that is reducing our audit pain, and it helps to enhance the process every day, and you are gradually learning that, right? And that is what DevOps means in our organization. Hope that that gives you a glimpse what is DevOps in our organization.
So hi everyone, thank you for listening us. With respect to what I see as DevOps is an implementation methodology what organization adopts, right? If I derive an analogy of how we how we see DevOps implementation, in old education system we used to go for an examination in schools or colleges once in 3 months, 6 months, or a year, right? And then we used to study, give exam after 3 months, 6 months, and that's all done. But to deriving an analogy with respect to a project management, the days are gone like this. Like the market demands, the business demands the faster reaction, faster delivery, faster results. because and therefore the people are actually shifting from SDLC, from a waterfall model to agile methodology and Scrum. Okay, considering that the market demand, as long as with respect to a development and a software development department, as long as we satisfy the business, we are good. Now, what methodology we adopt is something remains with us. Now, specifically a DevOps is a time we are actually in a recently in a education system. If I derive an analogy, the system is coming for, if someone is preparing for a competitive exam, like the classes are taking a chapter, teaching a chapter, the student is learning a chapter, immediately the questions answers are cleared, and then the exam for that chapter is conducted, done and dusted, then the classes and student both move to the next chapter. It is required because as long as the simple chapters are understood well clearly, you cannot go to the next level. Similarly, in a software life cycle, I see that this is what is getting evolved, right? We have to deliver faster, and showcase the result, then correct the course of action and move ahead. Having said that, DevOps fits in perfectly to this process, wherein I would like to stress in one point which DevOps communicates largely, which is CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous development. I would like to only insist and focus on highlighting a continuous part, which I guess we all should understand very clearly, taking it up from maybe a Japanese technique like a just-in-time or Kanban system. Continuous indicates that you are doing something which is in repetitive manner or iterative manner. Now, when someone does a repetitive and iterative manner, that is very important, and that's where people end up in achieving a skill in doing what they do. Okay, once you achieve that comfort of by doing a repetition, you definitely going to get benefited on time as well as quality. And that's also applies for education system also. Like, nowadays in a competitive system, my son is in 10th now, but I'm also realizing that the practice makes man perfect. That is very true. If you want to achieve a perfection on time and quality, you have to practice, practice, and practice. And for me, I think DevOps is something which is achieved by more practicing, and the benefits are achieved by reducing the time and delivering better quality. So that's what in our organization also we are focusing. We are doing this thing in pipeline, but slowly and steadily we will achieve the goals what we have decided as part of our strategy. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
So first of all, for those of you who follow soccer, I am a last-minute substitute. And I asked the other guy who was supposed to be here, why are you handing the baton to me? So he said, the audience is बहुत hard. Means, you guys all know DevOps, and the panel also, I looked up the panel. So
that is a welcome change, Sandeep, and welcome surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a cousin's marriage yesterday, so I had fair amount of dancing practice already, and today again thanks to the organizing team, we had another session of dance. So I believe coming to the question, DevOps is the lifeblood of organizations these days, especially the way things move really fast. And I remember my earlier time as a developer. This was many almost 10-15 years back. We had a very different kind of process. It used to take a lot of time to get things deployed in production. And today DevOps itself has been evolving rapidly. If you look at 3-4 years back, DevOps also was, a lot of mechanical steps, a lot of mechanical things that were happening. But now, largely the organizations are moving towards automated DevOps and, infrastructure as a code. So even DevOps is becoming more and more complex. And I think the significance of DevOps has increased multifold because of practically all the organizations being on the cloud. The services can be deployed at just by a line of code, and it has become very important for DevOps to have like a lot of things automated, because frankly it is simply not possible for manual interventions these days. I mean, like, we are using AWS primarily. We use a little bit of GCP as well, but practically a lot of things that are compliance related are automated now. We have set up all kind of rules, so we get to know that where things are breaking. It's no longer possible. If you want to make your teams agile and flexible, then you have to give them all the freedom to try out new things. But then by using these tools and provisions that we have on DevOps, we are able to ensure compliance as well. Again, being part of BFSI industry, all of like compliance is extremely critical for us to follow. So glad to be here with all of you, and looking forward to a very engaging session and learning from the fellow panelists as well. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So good afternoon all. I am Jyotirlata. I am from Godrej Capital, and this is actually a kind of very interesting experience we had with DevOps. Godrej Capital, as a finance arm of Godrej, we are a kind of startup, you can say. We have done everything from the scratch. So in that whole journey, DevOps, whatever we all know, I think in the audience also all of you know what is the actual definition of DevOps. Everyone will say what is CI and what is CD and how we are evolving and what kind of approach you are taking, whether it is Jenkins or whether it is Azure DevOps or whatever, AWS or whatever. So there are a whole lot of tools and techniques are involved in that. But the thing is, it's a disciplinary practice, because we all know how to use the tool and all, but if the tool is not used effectively, you will not be achieving the result which DevOps is supposed to give. So what is DevOps according to us? It's much more than agile methodology. It's a kind of it's not only the delivery, it is finally when you are operationalizing your changes. So how you are taking care of the scalability and how you are taking care of your performance management, how your monitoring is looking like, and whether you are able to give the customer the benefit that you are looking for that feature deployment and all. So this is a kind of the whole involvement is there. It's not only the delivery. So to achieve that, there are lots of in bits and pieces you need to evolve your processes. Like it's just as he just mentioned, it is a kind of automation. So what kind of automation you are giving it to your the release deployment. So this all depends upon what organization is looking for. So initially when we started, we are into a kind of we have a hybrid architecture. Like some of the products are coming directly as for the release or for the deployment, and some internal developments we are having. So in that way we are exposed to both CI and CD. So your testing has to be a kind of automated testing use cases and all you should be having to get the full benefit of the DevOps. Otherwise you will end up in doing bits and pieces where the whole the holistic view of the holistic benefits of the DevOps you will not be able to achieve. So that is my experience and my.
So very wise inputs from all of you. And so how do you assess the current state of the organization in your case? That what is my current state, where I want to reach, in what time, what it takes to reach there, how much mature my organization is when it comes to DevOps culture or DevOps readiness. So I'll like to have your inputs first.
This is for me? Okay. So if I understood the question right, so as I'll take two references, very quick references, as Jyoti ma'am has mentioned, right? The tools and the automation. So one thing is very clear: when we deal with the DevOps, everyone gets that visualization that it's that infinite circle, and it's printed with lots of tools, right? So it's not all about the tools, but using selecting the tools which really helps you, right? Because I have seen, people and companies, evaluating multiple tools in a year and end up, wasting a lot of resources in terms of not only money, but the human hours, company valuable assets, and then it's an endless job. If you're doing a lot of POCs, a lot of valuation, choosing the right tool, right sizing, and right adoption of the technology is one thing which you should be more focused when you're talking or implementing DevOps. Other than most of the time, what happens, that's my, learning, being in the DevOps function for more than a decade. When we talk about DevOps, the picturization of everyone has, it's like break fix things. Oh, something is, burning and we need a firefighter over there, right? That's not the DevOps. If something, you are, picking a DevOps team, and for this work, I think you're going wrong. That's not the DevOps for the break fix, right? It's not always. It does, but it's not always. You have to improvise. That's why there are RCAs. You have to. And another one more important thing to this thing, like I would like to add, is like we do the RCA. If you create an SOP, right? SOP, you must automate that as much as you can, right? That is another thing I would like to add. Apart from that, right, what happens in the DevOps, you will miss one common thing is that it's a collaboration, and not only by the DevOps team, right? That is where most of the companies are failing to adopt right DevOps practices. They think that this is a DevOps team and this will take care of, so and so things, but not. It is a collaboration where we work across the teams within the organization. Not only, tech team, we work with the finance team, we work with the, HRs also to hiring and all, right? And we work with the IT team and admin team as well, right? For some kind of, if you are dealing with access management kind of things, right? So it's not only DevOps team which will be, doing this. It's a collaboration. You also have to take part. That's why it is called as culture, right? And culture is not only one man's job or one team's job. It is everyone's responsibility. And that's how you build the culture from the ground and up. And another point I'll the DevOps has a very two way of flowing. The culture is bottom up and top down. And this is also another aspects to understand in the DevOps area, right? That is all the thing which I mentioned. It's my experience, right? Which I have been seeing across the, companies working with multiple startup, bootstrap companies, right? And this is, I see that these are the things which you, focus more when in anything, like, it's a summary, right, of all the questions which you can put into the DevOps things. This will summarize. If you are flowing the culture from top to bottom down, right, this will summarize everything. And collaboration is the most important thing. Don't be reactive. Another thing, because most of the time, as I said, break fix, people become reactive. So that's not something which DevOps is supposed to do. You have to be, proactive. Begin that, famous saying, begin with the end in the mind, right? So that is again another DevOps approach, and that is very, well said word, right? And if you are implementing that idea in the DevOps, I think you are the winner. You will win any project. You will have the deliveries ready because you know that what I have today, where I want to go, and what are the dots I have to connect to reach there. So that's why it is very important to begin with the end in the mind. If you're not doing that, that is again you are deviating from the DevOps practices. So to summarize that, I think this is what I can say about it. Right? I hope this helps.
Yeah, sure.
So, okay, so when I talk about the DevOps which we are bringing into our organization is to basically fasten up the delivery. That's most important because, as I said, the agile method or certain functions which are built in to automate the things. So what happens when it is a third party, it's a knowledge, it is basically a people, it is basically a process and technology, which all three comes together and builds this DevOps. Now, when you say we are giving outsourcing, it is always that there is a gap between the business and the process, which basically we internally know. And we thought that in last 2 years, the digital has such expanded that we have to deliver the change every 15 days, which was not really possible for us to do when we were outsourcing this. So when we brought it inside, as they say, culture, when we started looking at the processes, what went wrong, why the delivery is not happening, because there was no connect. There was no connect between what we want to achieve and what we want to develop, because the development team on the other side they are the programmers, but they don't have any kind of interaction with the business. Neither it is just the work given to them, a BRD given to them, they start working on it. And there are a lot of things which you see in between, which the development partner might not see. So that's what we saw, a big gap, and we thought of bringing our own team and making this a complete process in-house, which will help us to deliver it faster and create, as they say, automation. Automation is a key. When you say automation is not reinventing the wheel every time. If I have a function in my purchase process, that function can be used for investor, distributor, or any kind of other activities which can be bring into the application as and when needed. So this will basically help to deliver it fast. That's what actually. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I would like to add 2 bits here. A typical interview question है, where are you stands on 1 to 10 scale on DevOps implementation in your organization? But I am not going to answer that, what the scale is. But the point is, I would like to add and highlight how we have ended up in adopting DevOps methodology in our organizations. A step where we had a lot of brainstorm internally, and first step we did is one is to not all projects are catered to or feed it into a DevOps cycle. Okay, to begin with, because we did not want in our organization that we start something and it will fail. So we wanted to move very carefully. So predominantly we selected web-based and microservices basis where the changes are frequent and we can do a CI/CD. So we selected, few projects for which we wanted to implement. So that needs to be carefully identified and kick-started. That's point number 1 we did. Point number 2 we hired a solution architect who will guide us how we will implement the DevOps in our organization. What all things we need in terms of system perspective for executing and implementing the DevOps this thing. So that person specifically, properly guided us what would be the steps and we should move on. That's second thing. So these are preparation for fail-proof. Third thing we tried implementing is to have a lot of meeting with the internal stakeholder, whether it is a software development people, infra people, and a developer starting from, as he correctly mentioned, it cannot be a top-down mandate in organization that मुझे next 3 months में DevOps enable होना है, करना है organization में. That doesn't work. Okay, so we internally had this buy-in from all the stakeholders, specifically from infra team and abstract team, application development team, so that they both will be on a same page. In terminology, what they mention, it's a collaboration, it's a buy-in from all the stakeholder for moving on with the methodology what we want to implement, and everybody has to realize the benefit of this implementation. Whatever is the benefit, we need to actually, and we wanted to select a project which are actually a low risk in the beginning and high value. Selecting those kind of a project and then started implementation with the DevOps for those particular projects, and then we actually started with establishing a tool chain, different tools what we wanted to have in place while we implement the DevOps in our organization. So whether that's GitHub or TFS or Jenkins and etc. So then eventually we started step by step implementing these things so that we wanted to achieve the results. Of course, we achieved to an extent. Measurement of implementation and a benefit is something still something like not so better way we were able to achieve it. but that's something we are also doing it with the trial and error and how benefits we can rip off. But as I mentioned, the practice makes man perfect. So we will see those benefits, but this is what are the important step I see people should implement while starting or implementing in your own organization for implementation of DevOps for many projects.
Yeah, so well said. It's basically a journey, right? We cannot, we have to enjoy the journey and cherish the learnings over there, and the destination is not that important as the journey itself. So I would like to welcome your views, Jyoti, about it.
As he rightly mentioned, first of all, you need to identify where actually these pipelines are going to add value. Just because one culture or one methodology is there, it is not going to work for some of the applications. So what we started in the organization was like a kind of, first we found the benefit in the CD pipelines. So how you are doing the continuous deployment, whether it is actually a frequently changed application or maybe a monthly cycle or whatever, we moved all the applications to first the DevOps pipeline and the deployment CD pipelines. So in this entire thing, another value we found is DevOps is fine, like you are deploying, and also it's one step forward we have taken is towards the DevSecOps. So security, we are on cloud. Actually, security is always a kind of a big concern, and not only because of the cloud, but otherwise also in BFSI industry, that is, I think everyone will agree. So security is the first thing. So as a practice, I think our co-panelist also has mentioned it's a kind of culture. So security we made as part of the complete the development cycle. So some of the checklists we have given it to the vendors to take care of while the development is being done, and security is part of each and every stage. So that is a culture change that we could bring in, and with the CD focus and all, now we are focusing on doing the test case automation. So all said and done, there are some still manual steps. So everything is not a kind of once you are promoting to UAT and all, still a kind of sign off is required for the the deployed VAR or whatever you are doing. So this sign off and there are still some kind of manual steps are there. So to answer exactly your question on 1 to 10 scale, it's very difficult to answer where we are, but it is a journey. So every if you are expecting the entire benefit you will get in first month of deployment, you are not going to get it, is what my experience in that.
Yeah, fair point. Sandeep here.
I think in my view, like if I can ask a question to the audience, is it okay?
Yeah.
So how many of you like do a monthly analysis of your DevOps cost infrastructure? Can everyone raise a hand who is doing a monthly analysis at least? Okay, one gentleman. Nice. So I think, when I started back, so I have been around little over a year at HDFC Life, and when I joined, there was a bloodbath going in engineering. So
You joined at the right time, actually, when you had a lot of things.
Yeah, so first few months was, kind of busy to just retain the team, existing folks in the team, but this January onwards, we started the activity of analyzing, almost daily basis, kind of we have set up a governance process now in place. And I think the most important thing for any organization is to have a governance process around DevOps. Everything else will automatically flow from it in terms of what can be done to solve the problem. A lot of times, this is just my observation, that we don't even know if we have a problem in house. At the level we are in, we don't know, because a lot of times junior folks are working in the team, and their focus may be short term, right? So one of the things that we introduced is now we have a very tight monthly and daily governance kind of process where we monitor how things are changing, what costs are going up, why are they going up, or even if it is going down, we have to have a reason for that. So governance is the most important thing, and I can bet, I mean, like I have spoken to many leaders, a lot of people feel that, things are going out of control, on-prem ही अच्छा था, मतलब cloud में तो बढ़ते ही आ रहा है cost. So, and a lot of times people are also looking at multi-cloud. Okay, can we do something with multi-cloud so we don't have one vendor who is, bending our arms and all. But I think the right way to go about it is like analyzing what you currently have and making sure that are we maximizing its use, or is there a wastage going around, in terms of utilization. So we started, I pushed the team to start this process from this January onwards. For the first few months, it was, dhila dhala kind of, हाँ dekh rahe hain types, like it was.
Yeah.
But then we really pushed the envelope in terms of setting our targets somewhere around July, August, and now we are really happy to say that, a lot of high-cost contributors of our AWS, like RDS, EC2 and all, we have been able to achieve like cost reduction by as much as 40%. In fact, in our last monthly business review with AWS, they were asking, is something wrong with you guys? Are you not using, are your applications, shut down or something? We said, no, nothing is wrong. We are just using it, properly now. And so my, single takeaway for myself also is that governance and analysis is the foremost thing. Everything else will fall in place once we know, what are the problems. Because teams are very smart. People, once they know the problems are there, they can find out a solution. But a lot of time, people don't even know that they have problem. And this would be one thing. Secondly, I feel like, adding to what the gentleman over here said, these days the team composition has become very important. Like if you have pure DevOps guys who come from system admin background, it's not going to work in terms of going to the next level. What we have done at HDFC Life, especially for the digital team that I'm managing, we have put in some people who came from application development and architecture background and made them part of the DevOps.
So it's a fair mix of team basically.
Exactly, because what I found is like a lot of time DevOps people were not able to challenge the application development team in terms of architecture. Like, some guy would come, कि मुझे DynamoDB चाहिए, भाई क्यों चाहिए DynamoDB? Like, you should know.
Right.
Like the DevOps team which has a pure, system admin kind of background and not application development, they were not able to challenge. Why do you need this? Or, somebody would say, मुझे serverless जाना है. क्यों जाना है serverless? Because it all depends on like whether your application has that kind of scaling requirements or not. So now we have created, a team which has both application development background as well as pure DevOps, and things are falling in place. I would not say like, we have a lot of technical debt still to solve, but at least we know like where we have to go.
So that brings back to the famous Trinity problem, people, process and technology. So which according to you, Divesh, would be the biggest contributor or the biggest challenge, if I could, for any kind of an adoption in terms of DevOps? What do you think and what is the way to resolve that?
So what the most important hurdle is the process, whereby the people are there, the technology is there, but when you talk about the process, when we say about how you want to go about having whether your UAT, whether your test cases running, so if you want to deliver anything on a particular time-based model, you basically need to have a lot of things in place, the infrastructure, the people, and then the you can say the business understanding. So if you have a process in place where you first put the things in place when it starts from people, and then they can adopt those things, and then it will become easy for any kind of a delivery to happen in a way as we define. So so that's what I feel. The process is most important between the technology and the people, which will see that the delivery happens in time. That's what it is.
just to add on that, like I have been, from my beginning of my career, I've been kind of DevOps engineer. So one of the most common problem which I have faced as a DevOps challenge is unrealistic expectation as a, I'll say the problem number first. Because businesses are driving, they are dominating always, right? And they set up a very unrealistic expectation on the product. Then product drives that pressure on the tech, and then tech drives this pressure on the DevOps. So this is something that's a very this debate cannot end if you start talking about unrealistic expectation. That is one thing, right? That's the biggest challenge in the DevOps adaptation or implementation. The second thing, now what is happening, most of the startups are just DevOps has become a very fancy name, right? And they are just doing the DevOps for the DevOps sake. That's also not the right thing to do, and that's another challenge for the DevOps. People again forget that this is very common thing. Again, I'm repeating the same thing. It's a culture. Don't do just if it's not in your culture, right? And that's another challenge, because just people try to learn from the others, but they are not seeing what was the motivation from where they started, what were their problem challenges, what gain they had from after implementing or during the implementation, right? So these are the challenges. Apart from that, DevOps challenge is that most of the times people forget that, rightly mentioned that do not reinvent the wheel, right? And most of the time what we see that with the most of the organization is just on the name of DevOps, they try to reinvent the wheel rather than learning from the experience my peer had, right? That is another thing, and that's the biggest challenge, because you try to prove that I'm doing DevOps in a very better way comparing to my peer. That's the another challenge to really adopt the DevOps, right? So these are the few challenges I can quote from my experience, and I would love to learn from the peers what they have to say.
No learning, just experience sharing. That's it. So, most of the challenges are actually put forward. For us, we being a bank, and we had a legacy applications and etc. So per se, the biggest challenge for us is change the mentality, stakeholder buy-in, internal stakeholder, and cultivating them to a new methodology, dropping it from waterfall model or regular SDLC to a DevOps methodology. That was a challenge, and plus the skill set is definitely a challenge. Where there is a lot of confusion exists, who is right, who is wrong, what's right, wrong methodology to implement, because skill set is something we definitely had a big challenges, but like a regular hiring which is happening in the market now, for others we are also hiring and hired people, but these are the two predominant challenges we face internally. Yeah, thank you.
So I completely agree. The skills are the foremost in this, because getting the correct DevOps engineer actually is very, very difficult, and especially last 1 year we have been seeing how IT industry is in terms of the resources and all. So this is the biggest challenge. And second one is when we are having the DevOps and all, the clear-cut understanding of what you are going to do in the organization. Actually, what kind of applications you are going to use in the DevOps technology and all. So this is very, very important. This has to be part of the strategy. Otherwise, I think as our colleague has explained, the incorrect expectations would be set. Like what we are going to do and what we are going to get is something which is not clear. So that will fail. So those are some of the challenges that we faced, in fact.
I think just to add to a lot of great comments, insights have already come, and I've already mentioned that process is the most important thing. But apart from that, I can talk about few other challenges that we faced. One of that is a lot of times DevOps teams were busy, firefighting, troubleshooting and all that. And there was never time to do anything innovative or, out of the box, or even take things forward. So we have consciously now allocated a very small bandwidth of our team who is just doing, innovative and new things such as CI/CD implementation. The simple idea is once you have CI/CD across all projects, you don't have manual dependency on the DevOps teams, and a lot of things get automated. Plus we are also having integration with automated test cases, both for functional testing as well as security testing, which is coming to what ma'am mentioned about DevSecOps. So what I tell my team is like, do smart work, not hard work. I would rather be happy if you spend like 2-3 hours reading about new things than just doing the same repetitive thing and all. Like, once I had a funny incident. We had to make a late night deployment, and the DevOps guy was out for some bar or something. By the time he came back, he was not in his senses. So we don't want to have those kind of situations with any kind
how
of.
How did you
process.
handle that? How did you
I mean, like, eventually we were able to get him to share the credentials for the Jenkins server and all, but it was very difficult.
So production environment pointing to UAT, vice versa, all those kind of stuff.
So now that day, I decided that by CI/CD jana hi hai, otherwise
no
this
auditor
is not
sitting
good.
here. I think there is no auditor sitting here. So,
No, with CI/CD now he solved this problem.
CI/CD definitely solves a lot of this problem and like takes away a lot of manual effort, and that time can be spent in doing analysis about what new services are coming on board, how we can move to serverless. We are doing a lot of that work now, but the team was completely occupied with mundane routine things early on in the cycle.
So that brings to an interesting question that with a lot of challenges to achieve or to attack, and all the energy which is pushed to make DevOps engagement successful, the research says that most of the DevOps projects across the world, they fail. What could be the challenge? Which is, some of the challenges are kind of addressable, some are not. So which one or two factors is something which is a dire need to be addressed, and in which way? I'd like to hear from you, Vikas, and all you gentlemen.
Okay. So this is a very hot question, I'll say, that in the DevOps field, because in my previous answer, the DevOps challenges, these are the DevOps challenges which leads to failure of the DevOps projects. Right, because after the DevOps challenges, this question has been rightly pumped up from there. Most, as I mentioned, like unrealistic expectation sets, because what happens when you have a pressure, you bypass a lot of laws, right? As you mentioned rightly, that there should be a governance, right? There should be a governance, should be there to regulate the things. And when you have a pressure, you have a delivery timelines. You know that I have seen one of the delivery incident, like one of the peer was launching so and so product, and this company just wanted to deliver that project overnight. Yeah. Right, and I got a call in 2 a.m. And I was sleeping. Right, so this unrealistic expectation, makes us to lose so many things, and this creates a hole in complete DevOps process. Right, and if you do that, you lose that again things, reinventing the wheel. We kind of forget about DevOps is kind of iterative process, right? It repeats itself. You have to follow certain steps to achieve that. When you have this kind of requirement, you lose that, and you make mistake, and you lose the iteration again. Right, you are not repeating your the process, because governance, as he rightly mentioned, governance should be there, and governance is for to make those dots to be connected and make you auditable, right? Because we are in fintech, and audit is something like from the day when it should be in your blood, like it's like particle white blood cells, you can say that, right? Apart from that, most of the times why DevOps project fails, that we as he mentioned, like most of the time DevOps people, doing that, something is not working, this is not working, that is not working, kind of. That's what I said. When you talk about DevOps, most of the people gets a feeling that's break fix guy. ये नहीं चल रहा है भाई, ठीक कर दे, right? So this is the feeling you get, and I think this should not be there at all. Whenever you have this kind of environment, I think that is not the DevOps, and your DevOps project will fail. Definitely will fail if you have break fix things going on in your organization. I can bet that, sign it off, right? So if this is happening, this is not the right thing you are doing, and your DevOps project will fail. Apart from that, again, rightly mentioned, automation, innovation should be there, right? Every time you make mistake, and we will make a mistake, that is there. No one can guarantee that I'm not going to make mistake. I'm ready for that. But once you're ready for that, adopt this failure, make it your success path based on that failure, and embrace the failure. I think you have to love your failures. If you're not loving your failures, again you are going to fail in the DevOps, and because in the DevOps you are dealing with the failures every day, right? This is not working, that is not working. It's your failures, right? And you have to love it, and you have to then make a path. You have to love your failures and correct it. Be motivated. Like, I'm happy to have my things breaking down, right? These are the reason why DevOps fails, if you are not adopting these kind of mindset, right? And mindset is another thing. If you are not ready for the DevOps cultural shift, again you are just copying pasting, your DevOps will fail, and that is the main important reason why DevOps fails in most of the organizations, right?
Yeah, that's a fair any other thoughts from you? Because
Yeah, so I would also, highlight, as, the reason for DevOps failure is as he highlighted, expectation setment. But, most of the time when we interact with our business as a dev team and application team or this thing, I think, we only have to define a correct sprint for a dev. Okay, too short sprint and will does not define a success right in the beginning. Okay, so we have a choice of defining a sprint. It's not necessary have to be a 2-week sprint mandatorily, okay, or 3-week sprint. Basis the sprint. Second is, as in the beginning I mentioned, not all projects are subjected to a DevOps. Yeah. One time delivery hai, there are not going to be too many changes which are coming for the project. Not necessary has to be applied for the DevOps cycle. Okay, specifically microservices, where your services and deliveries and changes are isolated and independent. So I can keep running my application and one microservice gets changed or bug fix. There is nothing happened to an other application. These are the kind of implementation we have to, focus first. In fact, these are the projects we should predominantly, should apply for a DevOps. So smaller or appropriate sprint size, and then defining a right project for implementation of a DevOps. These are the two things what I see. And as you mentioned, of course, person dependency has to be reduced with the right skill set in the company, and there could be a better team combination to make that success. It is actually it is easy to mention and say, but it is very difficult to implement, because the more success with respect to DevOps and Agile, what we see is giving more freedom to our team members or the people who can take their own independent calls. But the moment we give a freedom, there is a possibility of they making more mistakes. So, I agree with, colleagues saying that, how we would like to have a governance around it. That is where things are, most of the time gets failed. Person dependency, no governance. In fact, with the freedom and smaller size of the sprint, decreases the right kind of a documentation creation is also something which is a problem we face while implementing DevOps, because करने वाला तो कर देता है, बाद में who will fix the problems later on, okay, and how, that is also becoming a challenge while we implement DevOps projects.
Yes. So there are very clear takeaways from this discussion about DevOps. First, to assess the current state and maybe honoring the trinity of process, people, and technology. Process and governance form the biggest, or rather the most important factor of it, and how to get the people enabled or the culture to be ready to adopt DevOps in the organization, within the group, or within the team. That's how the DevOps journey can be navigated across. And
If I can add one thing
sure.
here, again, just based out of our own experience, I'm sure many of you are sitting here in the audience are leaders of your, respective teams. DevOps is never just a DevOps work. It is always a teamwork, and you have to have, support of application development teams and other teams also, because these days DevOps has become more complex. It is not just infra, it is also application architecture. And initially, from, as I said, when we started this exercise, for a lot of time, the needle was not moving, because, the application development teams were busy with their own deliveries and all that. And let's say if you have to bring down the cost of RDS, when you look at the cost contributors or factors, we observed that IO usage was one of the biggest cost contributor. And when we look at that, it's mainly because a lot of unoptimized queries were running, a lot of things which were taking a lot of time, indexes were missing and all. So now the thing is, unless we push the application teams also to adhere to the best practices, things are not going to fall in line. So as leaders of our technology teams, we have to push everyone together.
Yeah, rightly so. So thanks to the panel and thanks to the audience. We come to a close of this session. And wonderful. Thank you, Quantic team.